Today we are going to be diving into 3 different reports that are crucial for management reporting. It's a little bit of mix of just overall organizational reports, and then I think one is like a grant report. The idea is that you should be at the very least looking at these 3 reports on a consistent basis. And so if you have concerns about whether you're seeing the right things, if you're wondering how you should maybe improve your nonprofit financial reporting, then you'll want to keep watching. So before we get into the actual reports, because I'm actually going to share my screen and walk you through a couple of them, I want to high level talk you through the 3 reports. So the first report is going to be your budget to actuals, but by grant. The reason that this is important is because oftentimes you're given these grant funds, many times they come with restrictions and the budgets are very clear about where you can spend money. So you want to, at the very least on a monthly basis, be looking at your spend, right? So your budget to actual by these individual grants. The next report is going to be your statement of functional expenses. And the reason why this report is very crucial is because, one, you have to report on your functional expenses on your 990, but then also funders do require a lot of times only a certain percentage of funds be allocated to like the admin category. And so while you're not going to, of course, lie about where things fall as the functions are concerned, you do want to make sure that you have a pulse on where the balance lies and if some things need to be either adjusted, if you need to have conversations about where you're spending at for the future. And that's why it's important to look at these reports on a consistent basis, because if you look at it too late in the year or at the end of the year, you really can't go back, and any changes that you made typically will be made for the future or the next year. And so you want to look at these things consistently. And then the last one is going to be cash flow projections. And the reason that this one is of the utmost importance is because you need to be mindful of your inflows and outflows, especially if typically you're spending before you're getting your grant funds in. So you want to be able to project out to determine, do you have any shortfalls coming up? Are there any surprises that you need to be aware of? Are there any months where you're anticipating, a large uptick? But then also, as you are planning, you can plug and punch in numbers and determine, how will this affect us? How will it not, right? And so that when you are making decisions, you can kind of use it also as like scenario planning. So now we're going to go over to the screen and I'm going to show you each of the reports and then we'll be back. Okay, so this is our grant expenditure report. And you might be looking at it and you're like, this looks a little bit different, and QBO does not spit out a report that looks exactly like this, of course, but you are able to track budget to actuals. But one of the things that I think it's important to know is that while we do preach or teach that you want to be able to get your data out of QuickBooks Online, sometimes you will have to, once you export that data, put it in a way that's easy to look at, easy to present on, right? In the event that you may have to show this to your funders, or in the event that you might have to present this to your board. And so what you see here is just very straightforward. And again, this is an example because different grants are going to require you to report on different things. So for example, if your grant budget has more lines than what you see here, then of course all of those lines should be here, but this is just an example. And so every month we plug in where it's yellow, right? The expenditures. And then what you'll see here is, and again, this is based off of how long the grant is. And so that's why it goes all the way up to June 2025. But then here we plug what the budgeted numbers are, so that when we begin to plug in our numbers here, right? So 100,000, I don't know, I'm just playing around plugging numbers in here, but because I just want to show you what this looks like. But you'll see that this starts to tell you, it starts to add up. Like so far, this is how much you've spent for this period. And then here starts to tell you how much you have remaining. And the reason why this is important is because you can see as you're planning your next month or planning your next quarter, like, are we close to spending in a certain category? Have we overspent, right? That's a possibility. Who knows? Like, they only gave you 10 here. This shows that you're over by $10,000, right? And so again, this is just about being able to see a bird's eye view of what's happening with your individual grants, so that you can make sure that whatever decisions you're making in regards to spending, you're making it from a place of data. Now we're going to head to the next report. Here we are with report number 2, and this is the statement of functional expenses. Now you'll see here that there's no income at the top of this report. This was pulled from the statement of activity by class from QuickBooks Online, and we've removed the revenue portion. And so this is another example of we got the bulk of our data from QuickBooks, but then of course we had to just manipulate slightly so that we can really see what we're trying to look at here. You'll see here, you know that the main 3 functions are admin, fundraising, and programs. This particular statement of functional activities, you'll see there's some subcategories, but under programs, and so we've indicated those here, but can hide because this is essentially what it actually would look like if it was just strictly the high level functional categories. But sometimes for the purposes of management reporting, you might want to see what your individual programs might be reporting as far as expenses. But this is the level that typically you're reporting in your 990. And again, the importance of seeing this like this is because you want to know what the balance is among your functions. Are you overly leveraged in any one area? Have you, possibly violated any funding requirements as it relates to how much you're supposed to be spending on any one category? And so typically the board likes to see this. And so you'll see here, very simple. These are categories that have come out of the chart of accounts. And this is how it's broken up across function. And when you are getting your month-end reports, you should be looking at this report along with those. And now for our last report, we are looking at the cash flow projections. And so now this is a personal or template that we've created internally, but it is pulled from the data from the budget and the actuals that are reported like in QuickBooks. When we close the books, we make sure that the actuals, of course, come directly from there. But then sometimes we like to look at it in comparison to the forecast. We then do a total forecast plus actuals and then compare that to the budget, and we provide a variance here. Now, you don't see the variance actually included here, but this is where that would go. And it would be the variance of your total forecast plus actuals versus your original budget so that you can see, are you tracking? Are you over in any one area? Are you severely under in any one area? Like for this organization, like they've budgeted rather high for, let's see, what is this line? For communications and marketing, but look how much they're spending. They had a really high month in August, right? So we'd, of course, point that out and want to discuss with them, like, what was that? Was it just an outlier? Are these, expenses that you foresee happening in the future? But then look after, maybe based on a conversation, they were like, no. So it's like, whoa, got kind of low. So we know at the very least, they're nowhere near reaching this. And so the conversation would be, is this too much, right? Have we budgeted too much when we're thinking about the next year? Is it possible that we maybe want to budget a little less in this category, right? So that's just an example of a conversation where, you'd be having, whereas, again, budget is $60,000. They've spent no money in this line. So it's like, what is this? What did you think you were going to be doing that you're not, that you're not doing? And so again, good conversations to have. This is a really good picture for you to be able to have conversations, with management, with your board about whether or not you're on track and where you see some areas where you guys can maybe improve the budgeting process moving forward, because now you have data to actually back up those decisions. So as you can see, after we move on from kind of those basic levels of like bookkeeping and accounting and reporting, we start to move into more complexities and building out different types of reports and things to look at that will better help organizations make better decisions, right? Coming from a place of data-backed decisions, right? And really improving what you're looking at so that when you make a decision, you're able to say, I made it because. And again, these are just a couple of reports that we've gone through, but these are not the only reports. It really depends on your organization, the size, the complexity, the makeup. And I stress the makeup because an organization that is mainly funded by individuals may not need this level, but an organization that has various sources of funding may really need to dig into the data on a consistent basis because of the multiple, moving parts. And so again, I hope that this was helpful. Please note that the templates that I share on here. These are the type of things that are available in the Accounting for Good community. I've mentioned on here that we've launched our community. It is up, it is running, and it is a place for nonprofit executive directors to truly strengthen and gain deep knowledge and expertise in an area of accounting and financial literacy for nonprofits. And so we dig deep into these things. You can ask your questions, you get one-on-one answers and responses, and you're also in community with other leaders who are also trying to lead their organizations in a way that is financially sound and backed by data. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them below in the comments. And if you have any videos you'd like me to walk through, to film as we are moving into the new year, wow, please drop them below because we are beginning planning for those things. And I'll see you guys in the next video.